Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Love, Life, and Energy. We have a really amazing special guest. Her name is Dr. Z. She's a feminine energy therapist and promotes radical self love. I know you guys are going to be so keen to hear about this. It's going to be an amazing episode. And so stick around. Hey, my name is Michelle Chung, and I'm a live manifestation expert, which means I help women manifest their soulmate live in person, offline. And I help career-driven A-type alpha women find their man so they can have the amazing, committed, and effortless relationship they deserve.
Well, thank you,
Awesome.
Michelle, for inviting me to come spend some time with you.
Yay, awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Z. So basically you're a two times international best-selling author. You got these books called The Creative Life Book and The Radical Self-Love Edition. Just love those titles, by the way. And you're also a feminine energy therapist and a licensed marriage and family therapist. You also hold a doctorate, hence Dr. Z, a doctorate of education in counseling psychology. And you're also a yoga instructor, life integration coach, a retired veteran, super impressive. And this has really caught me. You studied to be a temple priest goddess. You were like just the embodiment of feminine energy. So I'm just so excited to be here with you. But I'm just so curious, how did you get started in your career doing what you're doing right now? What was the inspiration and how did you get started?
Well, just to kind of even go back a little bit on this, there was this one day, these two people met each other, they created me, and then ta-da! But aside from that part, um, I would say since I was younger, I always knew that I would help people. The capacity that I would help people changed and shifted as going through elementary school, high school, and all the things. And then ultimately by the time I got to high school, while I didn't ever plan on going to the military, but went anyways, and then had a great time, I decided that I wanted to go to school to be a counselor. At that time, I was kind of teetering on being a therapist and helping people with their feelings, of course, after doing cosmetology school, because who doesn't want to look beautiful in that capacity, and stopped. And then considered I could also be a teacher because I really like math, and most people don't like math. I like numbers. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to be a teacher and a therapist. And when I got to a pivotal point and I needed to make a choice based on my attention span and my understanding of ADHD, I realized I don't want to
Mm.
sit in one spot all day, every day. So maybe I'll be a therapist and help people 1 hour at a time become better versions of themselves. So going through that, also becoming a mom in that process, and now being the proud owner of two daughters, I decided as I was finishing like my master's degree and then decided to go ahead and get a doctorate because I wanted to be called Dr. Z. So that was definitely a thing.
Nice.
In the midst of that, I had so many different like life things happen that most people would absolutely say they're horrible. They sucked. They were not cool. It was not good. And I was going through it by myself because for the most part, I would typically be single and not maybe have the type of relationships I was wanting. And I wanted to be able to help other people have that, feel confident to not have the feelings that I felt about myself. Like, just who's like, if I don't feel good about me, how am I going to help other people? I'm helping all these other people's children all day long, and I have my own kids. What what am I doing? So I then started digging deeper into other alternative healing modalities so that I could expand the way that I do actually go about caring and supporting other people. Hence becoming a yoga instructor and being intentional about learning different healing modalities and then studying to be a temple priestess. So I could shift those relationships and dynamics that I had with women and predominantly with myself, because I felt like if I could shift myself and how I feel about me as a woman and those stereotypes and things that I held, it would absolutely make a difference in the relationships that I would have with my partners.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really amazing. So, um, I'm just like, was there any one pivotal moment in your life that made you think, I need to help people? You said it was from childhood, you already knew. So was that intuitive or was there a pivotal experience that happened?
Um, There is, and it's the same one. And I keep thinking maybe there was something else, but there just isn't. So this one time, and I'm positive I was like at least under 12 years old for sure. And I grew up in Ohio, so it was summertime, so it was, warm out. And I decided that I was going to make an orange float, which was orange soda and vanilla ice cream.
Oh,
It
yeah.
felt like a great idea. It
Yeah.
was going to be perfect. It was going to be amazing. Had it, and for whatever reason, I vomited back out. And I did it on my mom's
Oh,
carpet on top of
oh
the wood
no.
floor. And my mom, like, she helps people, so it's kind of like always been around. She like retired as a nurse and used to like drive school buses. Like, she's always helped people herself, and I used to go with her to help. But in that moment she was like, you got to clean up your own vomit because I can't do that. And I was like, I'm a kid. I was like, you know what, I'm going to clean it up, and I'm going to make sure that I help people. Maybe I'm going to be a doctor so nobody else has to throw up from orange floats again. And then, as
That's
silly
so
as it sounds,
cool.
it just kind of evolved from there to, okay, I don't want to be a doctor in that capacity because I don't want to figure out anatomy. Like, I'm just not, I don't want to
Mm.
do it. And that was the pivotal point where I decided, yes, I will help people because no one should have to clean up their own vomit if they don't want to. And kid brain,
That's so
but
funny.
that's where it started.
That's so cool. I mean, isn't that the age where you start creating those stories that kind of stick with you for life? And they can be, useful stories, productive, effective stories that help you find your purpose, or they could be stories that, stop you and stop you from achieving, your purpose. So it could go either way. But that's around the age of you said under 12, right?
Yeah. Yes, and I'm pretty sure it was maybe under 12 just because at around about maybe 13, 14, I know like I moved to California and I still lived
Mm,
in Ohio at that time. So it
okay.
was under 12 for sure.
Nice. Awesome. Cool. So, everyone's dying to hear now. What are your views on love and relationships? Being a marriage and family therapist, you've trained in that, but you've also done a lot of work with women and a lot of courses on feminine energy. Tell us about how, your views are on that.
Well, I I can definitely say that I may be a part of the pity parties for previously feeling like it's all horrible and it all sucks. It's like the worst ever. Even as a therapist, being like, man, I don't even know why people are doing this. Like, they just keep hurting each other, and then they keep showing
Mm,
up for the hurt. But thank goodness, through learning different things and recognizing my desire to be a better version of my own self, um, I think relationships are pretty awesome and they're not as complicated as we've made them be. But thanks
mm,
to other people's opinions, lack of clarity on our own desires and wants, it gets really easy to make everything complicated and
yeah.
less work if you're pointing the fingers at the other people. If it's everyone else's
Mm,
problem in the world, then you're not the reason you're not in a relationship because clearly the world has a problem, not you. If every time you're in a relationship, it goes this particular way, it must be the other people because you couldn't possibly be the common denominator in all of your relationships at all. Because how? Just as if you look at those relationships, romantic ones, if you start there and you start peeling back, well, what do your relationships look like with your friends? What is your relationship like with peers, co-workers? Are you the boss? Like, what does that relationship look like? And then even go back to your family. What are those things and stories? As you said, when we're younger, we're creating the stories and the patterns and the filters for how we're doing our lives. By the time we become full-blown physical, chronological age adults, we're still carrying all that stuff around if we've never done any work towards it. So we're now
yeah.
coming into a relationship, meeting a new person, and expecting them to know all of our hurts, all of our pains, not trigger us, also know what we like and want. Mind you, we don't even know what any of that stuff is for ourselves. And then we're
Yeah.
like, why didn't you get it?
Yeah.
I'll wait.
And and they've got all their stuff that they're coming with as well. So compounded with all your stuff, and you wonder why those relationships don't work.
And there's also the space of, I like to find the silver linings in everything. So for each relationship that when the person is willing to be real with themselves and like take a hard look, you can totally ask another person like for feedback. So what was I like in a relationship? And if they're willing to give it, great. Um, there's always a little bit of truth in even the nastiness that people do end up saying about us. And that truth may not be how they displayed it, but it's an area for us to look at. And if we really start looking at what's our relationship like with ourselves, because that's the first one that we have, anyways. And when we don't take the time to care for ourselves and get to know our likes, our dislikes, our comforts, our areas where this is going to be scary, but I'm willing to, or I'm not ready for this yet, then we're putting a whole lot of pressure on another person that is also simultaneously having the same experience about potentially different things or the exact same ones. And then you guys are like putting those on each other and being surprised that it's not working. Like, why are we doing this? And yet we wake up and we start over and we do it all over again. And they're like,
Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah, you're so right on that. If you, how can we expect somebody else to help us or clean us up if we don't even know ourselves and what to clean up? And they're so in their own stuff as well. Then first priority isn't you, unless if they're, have other stuff where they're unbalanced and they only trying to fix other people. That's another
Mhm.
thing on its own, isn't it? So the
Absolutely.
relationship dynamic is just it, like you said, I loved how you said it can be so simple and so effortless. I always say the word effortless because I feel like relationships really can be effortless, and I've had them myself. Or you can make them really complicated by bringing all your own stuff, and hence why doing work on yourself, like the therapy, the radical self love, as you promote, is so important, isn't it? And isn't it funny how always people are like, oh yeah, work on yourself first, and you're like, what is it that I need to work on? So can maybe you can like help us like distinguish those. What exactly do you need to work on yourself before you come into a relationship?
I think the best place to start was is just taking responsibility for the fact that you are responsible for your own happiness. You're
Yes.
responsible for your reactions to other people's um you're responsible for everything you do. So if you're responsible for everything that happens with you, then it's up to you to notice when things aren't working for you and to start looking at those patterns and seeing where might I be able to start and what place do I feel comfortable with. That may be, maybe you start with how you feel physically because it might be easier to start there than to
Yes.
start with my thoughts, my stories, my heart. Like, that's a scary place to start digging around in there. Our heads already have so much. So maybe it starts somewhere that feels more objective.
That,
Physically, most of us can look at ourselves and you can say, like, I can see I can do a tweak here, a tweak there. It doesn't require as much deep work as it would require to discuss, why do you treat yourself this way? Why are you looking
yeah.
for someone else to treat you differently? And when that person's in a good space, why would you want them to not be anymore? That doesn't make sense.
This is I think this is a really good point you're making and really good advice because you start with the most obvious thing that you can change, right? Which is often the physical. And this is a
Hmm.
lot about what I talk about in when I study kinesiology as well. It's looking at the body. And when I had my back injury in my early 30s, I was still married. It
Hmm.
became a huge wake up call because I was literally stopped in my tracks. I couldn't walk. I had this back injury that I had sciatic pain. Um, it was a huge sign. At the time, I was very unconscious and I didn't know what that meant. But you're right. It was like the physical, the body, it's the last thing to happen, but it's the most obvious thing. So it's almost like you need to work backwards. Yes, you're right. Dealing with all the emotions and psychology part is a little bit more complex in our modern world and the knowledge and experience that we have. So take a look first at your body. Are you carrying too much weight? Is that like that's a huge sign of emotional, isn't it? Are you having injuries all the time? Is it on your left side of your body or is it right side of the body? That also relates to masculine and feminine, doesn't it? So you know where to look. So the physical body gives you huge clues, doesn't it?
It
On
gives you all
on
the
where.
answers, and we just ignore all of them.
Right, right. So are you always having, one shoulder is always sore, or even eyesight, like in my family we all had glasses growing up, and very um it was very common, I think, in maybe in Asian culture, to see people wearing glasses at a very young age, and it was
Mhm,
always like, oh, that's just how it is. But when I was delving deeper into researching this in kinesiology, mind body medicine, Chinese medicine, the
mhm.
eyesight is also a way of you not seeing what is really in front of you. And I think a lot of people have don't they that you stick your head in the sand, ostrich kind of thing. That's that,
Absolutely,
isn't it? That's a bigger symptom of something else.
totally. I'm really glad that you brought up the notice of the left and the right side of the body, and just speaking to
Yes.
that masculine and feminine energy, which unfortunately, especially for women, there is this overwhelming drive, this empowerment, and we're strong and we can do all these things, which is true. Like, as a retired veteran, like, I did some stuff that everybody doesn't do, so I definitely don't feel compelled to do it now. But with that being said, this desire to be taken seriously, to not be played with, to be respected,
Yes.
and to
Yes.
always, in businesses, like, why have 2 to 3 businesses? Because clearly I needed to. Not the best idea in the world. Never suggested to anyone ever again. But being so strong and heavy in your masculine prevents you from actually
Mm,
experiencing that whether you date the same sex difference, like whatever that looks like, there's still a feminine and masculine component that goes to everything that makes things work.
yes.
Within a relationship, there is a time for both partners to have the capacity to be in their masculine. But when neither one of you is allowing that feminine to show up, that's where you're getting headbutts. If everyone's in their feminine, then everyone's now sad and moping because no one's caring for them. And it's like something's got to give here. And it comes back to ourselves again, and looking at how are you balancing your feminine and masculine energy. In women, are you so heavy in your masculine that you don't even know how to accept and receive help and love anyways? And that's why it's
Yes.
being pushed away and rejected.
Oh man, that you yeah, I mean, you hit up on it, and that's why I invited you on this podcast, because we're so aligned on that. I'm also discovering that, and myself being a very masculine woman, I noticed that in my past relationships that my exes were more feminine than me. They would let me make the decisions and let me take the direction. And after all, I was exhausted. I was like, I don't want to be the one leading all the time, but I
Tired as
wasn't
heck.
creating the space. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you're exhausted and you're like, why isn't he doing anything? He's very unmasculine. But it's because I was taking up all that space. There was no more space for him to do that.
I would say historically, I have the opposite. It was two bulls butting heads, and it's like, well, recognize what I've done. And then had to learn he doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's just not that no man would ever care about what a woman is doing, but if he wants to show up and actually be there for you and support you and be your protector or
Mm,
provider or those things in somewhat of the traditional roles, then me trying to show that I wear pants too and I've got some pretty big bitches over here. Like, if he wanted to be with the male, he would have been with the male, but he chose to be
oh
with
my God,
me.
I love that.
Like,
Yes.
he chose to be with me, and if I'm choosing to be with him. It just works better when I'm able to harness and actually step into, I can do all of this by myself and have been. And thank you for supporting me, helping me, allowing me to be feminine, to feel soft and kind enough
Yes.
to want to do more in a different way. and not in a I got more tally marks than you for
Yeah.
who's the strongest and for what? For what?
Yeah. Absolutely. And that all comes from a space of ego, doesn't it? The female ego, wanting to be, I don't know if ego is more masculine, but it's more like an external, or maybe we're going into a very different, bigger, much bigger topic. But it's wanting to show who's right and who's stronger, and I guess we've absorbed that from this patriarchal culture, that society that we've had for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, when we've been trained to believe that we're the lesser of the sexes, and in fact we carry the
Literally
privilege of
create
giving birth.
humans? Like we literally
Yeah,
humans. It's the minor little thing here.
yeah, it's not so important, right?
But I think that what you're speaking to is alluding to us wanting to have our value be acknowledged. And if the only value that has historically been acknowledged in a patriarchal society is by your works, by your accomplishments. Like I've got a million certifications and degrees and stuff because I believed that's what was going to allow me to marry the man of my dreams. I'm going to show him all the stuff I can do. And he's going to say, oh my God, you did such a good job. Like, totally come be my wife. And then to be fair, on the other side, seeing women that had nothing and they're happily married or have lots of suitors, like, please, please be. And I'm like, I don't understand. But
Yeah.
there was nothing to understand because I was acting so heavily in my masculine. And every time, and I don't know, this might be the kicker. Every time the men in my life that do care about me praised me for my accomplishments, it made me believe that I'm that much closer to finding my spouse, which was probably nothing further from the truth because each accomplishment came a bigger puffing up of my chest and like, look at me, acknowledge me, say that I'm valuable, accept that I'm doing all these things when the partner I wanted to be with, I mean, I do have that person now, but the partner I wanted to be with was looking for the woman who was available to be supported, cared for, received, and wasn't in competition
Yes. Yes,
with
that's so true.
her.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that the same thing as well when I was single for 5 years, and I was kind of trolling through the dating sites, and I was always like, why is that woman getting all the, not that I didn't get lots of dates, but it was more like, why is that woman have what she have, and she's acting in a very different way. And my alpha masculine sense was kind of like, oh, uh, that repels me. And I was still very much in that, that unconscious masculine energy.
Yeah.
Um, and it was like, but she's so helpless. Like, that's not cool. But also on the other foot, um, being in a marriage, and I know women of a different generation who are in marriages and don't have any money, and then don't feel like they can leave an unhappy marriage, and they don't have the ability to, have that independence. So I think in our modern world, women, yes, we do need to have our own money and our own security in that, but we choose to be with a partner and allow them to be, be in our lives, and that's when we feel now safe and feminine as well. But having that balance and not having that overly, I'm helpless and I need a man to look after me. That era is gone, right? So we also need to have that balance. So, what kind of ways can you advise for women to be more in their feminine? What are some practical ways or energetic ways that you can recommend?
And at the time of this recording, like by the time people hear this, it may already be over, but I recognize most recently the benefit in identifying different types of friends. So I looked at people
Mm.
are very familiar with the title of the strong friend. Everybody kind of identifies like, oh yes, we know who that friend is. And people say, look out for your strong friend. But there's other types too, such as maybe like the quiet, peaceful, or okay friend. Like they're always okay. They're never like really out there, but they're always they're
Mhm.
good. They're good. And then even the type that I think is the aspiration, which is the goddess friend, that this is the woman that is embodying this. She's embodying her feminine and her masculine, and she has a good integration of flow and harmony of what that looks like. So yes, she takes care of herself physically in the way that works best for her body. She spends time reading and learning about things that are of interest that would allow her to feel more fulfilled or on a even killed or grounded basis. She's surrounding herself with other women that are like-minded and exploring new ways to connect with other women, because when they spend more time together and they're doing so in a good way, in a collective way, and everyone's building up, everyone leaves a better version of themselves, which puts you in
Oh,
a position
so
that
good.
if you're looking for your person, if you're already around other really awesome women, you've just opened up and expanded and leveled up to being around more awesome men or other women. If you date like whomever it is you're looking for, every time you level up, you put yourself in a position to have a better level and quality level of relationships, not only with yourself, but with other people. So I would say assess how you're showing up so other people get a chance to know the version of you that you really want them to know. Don't go out
Mm.
if you're in a bad stay home. Nobody wants that. If you are in a good mood, like share and share it with the people that can reciprocate the same amount of energy. Don't keep sharing it with the person that's draining you dry.
Oh, that is such good advice. There's parts in my online program that I talk about, firstly the absolute responsibility that we spoke of before, and
Mhm.
also role models. And I think what you're saying about the friendship group, it's so true. You need to have not just support, but the right kind of support. I also talk a lot about 80/20, Pareto's principle. Look for the 20% in your life of people, of things, of activities that bring you the most energy, the joy, and give you the most leverage. And I think having the right people in your life give you a lot of leverage, doesn't it? And
Absolutely.
not saying that in a very harsh, competitive way, but this is just how life works. You want to work with the things that give you energy and not drain you, and that's the 20% you need to look for. And having those friends, whether they be single or in couples, I think is very healthy. And also, I think what tends to happen is that singles tend to gravitate towards lots of singles, so you always see
Mm.
gangs of single women and single men out on the prowl, and that doesn't work. That
No,
only works
go
in a
out
certain
alone.
way. Yeah, if you're hunting in packs. But like you said, and I've seen my clients, they're on their own, or they're like, doing their thing, and they meet somebody, and that's the way things happen, because it's obviously less intimidating for guys to approach you.
Oh,
But just being in your best energy, and being in your feminine. And you also said the friend that is like aspirational. Can you
mhm.
talk a little bit more about that?
Okay. So the title could change, but for today, it is the goddess friend. And I feel like this is the friend
Mm,
that what happens is that when this friend shows up, like the mood lifts. Everyone
mm,
collectively kind of just wants them to be around because they're either a really good time. They always either like look really nice, like there's something about them, like their mood, their swag, their flow, like
mm,
it always lands and it hits and it's always well received by everyone there.
mm,
Not that this person doesn't ever have bad days and is off, but in general, this person isn't always available to hang out and spend time with people because they want to. They don't come to every single thing, but when they show up and they bring a consistent, you can expect them to show up consistently the same way. You can expect that they're going to care about everyone who's there with them and they're going to want to be a part of what's allowing the experience to be good or great. They want to support the person who needs the support in the moment. They're also capable of saying when they've had enough and creating healthy boundaries to model, I love spending time with you, beautiful, lovely ladies. And I am also going to spend time alone. I'm going to spend time maybe one on one. I'm going to go spend time with my family, they're creating healthy relationships with all the people that they have in their lives. And they're choosing themselves first, selfishly, so that every time they show up,
I
it
love
is a
it.
selfless experience of this person, of this woman being there. That feminine gets to glow and flow even more. She's just giving, but also receiving the love back and graciously.
That's fantastic. It feels like she's the magnetic woman that I speak of in my online program and the training I give called the Love Journey. So
Mhm.
once you're, fully developed in yourself, you've rediscovered your soul, you are that magnetic person, and I call her magnetic me. And
Mhm.
having that person as your friend, but why not being that person as well? So you've described perfectly the type of magnetic woman. So why not step into that role yourself and be that identity so that you can also attract magnetic friends because like attracts like. So I think uh, what's important is to also be that person for others, right? And they'll want to be around you, and your network will grow. I love also how you said about being selfish because I also share that a lot. That it's underrated to be selfish. It's negative to be selfish, but I think it's one of the best things that you can do.
Huh?
And you talk about the radical self-love, and I think that is absolutely part of the self-love is to be selfish and focus on yourself. Because when I used to do this a lot when I would focus on fixing other people, I became the fixer. So that was my story when I was a kid. I got the gratification and ego boost when I was fixing things, and people were like, "Oh, you fix things," and hence I became a designer. So, that is a form of avoidance. But when you're focused on being selfish and you're actually loving yourself more, right?
Absolutely. When you are being selfish, it puts you in a position to actually allow people to have the overflow to be selfless because you're
Love
so
it.
full that everything that you're giving, you have it available to give and give freely and abundantly
Mm,
because you're not trying to hold on to scraps for yourself so you can survive and make it through the
yes.
day.
Yes. And that's absolutely abundance mentality and letting go of that, sac- um, letting go of the scarcity mentality. Absolutely. Fantastic. So, any final tips, words, advice on how women can find love in the modern world?
Yes. I know people have seen the memes. You do have to go outside, ladies. Like you really do. And it's a really good idea that when you go outside, every day that you walk out of the house, even if you know like this is I like crazy today, your crazy today should be the most beautiful version of crazy today ever. That when you walk
Mm.
out, you believe, man, I would love to be with me in this moment. And that same energy, other people will be like, why do I want to be with her? Like, she's
Wow.
crazy, but I just want to be with her. Get that
Wow.
every time you walk out of the house. Again, you
Amazing.
can look however you want to look, but own it. Own it, be intentional. Go where you like to go. Go do things you like to do. Go places where you believe the person that you like, where would they be at? Go hang
Mm,
out there so that they might see you to be able to reach out to you and speak to you. Try the apps, like get savvy, learn how to talk and communicate without being able to use your body as part of the allure or intention. Like, what are your words? What's your conversation like? Like,
that's
be
amazing.
be great.
I love it. That's amazing. Yeah, I think it just embodies everything that I teach and everything that I believe in as well. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was just such a joy and pleasure. And if you have any final words you'd like to impart,
I would say, as we conclude this, and some lovely folks have popped up to come visit as we're ending this lovely podcast, just give yourself a chance to be you. Start liking you, like you so hard that when you do decide to spend your time with other people, it's a literal gift that you allow them to be in your presence. And
oh
every
wow.
time you show up in that space, everybody wins.
Oh, that's freaking amazing. I just love that. I just Oh, I just, from my heart, I just really love that. Thank you so much. And how can people find you and get in contact with you? Where can people see your stuff?
They can find me on the Instagram at greater self underscore Dr. Z. Um, for the folks that like to go look up websites and want to deep dive and find out more about me and check out podcasts and things like that, you can go to greaterself.org. You can stop there or /hello, and then you'll always be able to see what latest events or things that I have coming up. You can also get access to my free downloads and some radical self-love info and some tidbits of how you can care about you more and embody the greatest version of yourself by accessing your feminine energy on purpose.
Oh, I love that. And what's the name of your podcast?
Oh, what is it? I think it's called it's called Greater Self Vibes. And the
Nice.
direction has changed and shifted over time, but the bigger picture is always helping people become the greatest versions of themselves. And more intentionally, recently, how you can access and harness your feminine energy to have a better integration of how you show up as a person.
Oh, that's so good. We're so aligned. I just love it so much. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's a pleasure. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Thank
Thank you so
you.
much for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.